guy, started talking about government and about opportunity. I was a young guy at that time, and he really impressed me. But one thing he said that always stays with me is that, opportunity is like a big grease ball. And if you don't grab it and hold on to it with your arms and your legs, and you let it slip away, it may never come again.
Okay.
So I always took that speech from Mr. Frost and kind of used that in my life as I moved on. When opportunities came, I tried to really hold those opportunities, take advantages of those opportunities, and make sure they made a difference in my life.
And so how did you transition from, so you didn't really transition from healthcare to politics. You're still in healthcare, but how did you make a move?
Well, one thing about being in the military, you learn to be involved in the communities that you live in, because you move from base to base. I was there for 9.5 years. And every time I moved from another base, you want to engage because your family moves with you.
Right.
So when I got into the civilian world, I just continued to be involved in not-for-profit organizations, involved in community. I was not involved in the political components of it, but also back growing up in Allgale, we were always involved. We had this parades. We had a co-op up there where we had L. Bill, who owned the grocery store, and he was one of the first certified grocery stores in the country, African American. And then we had Mr. Cartwright, who was a pharmacist. We didn't see black pharmacists. So, when I look back into my upbringing and the entrepreneurships that motivated me and how we was involved in the community, it's always been a match for me. I've always been involved in the community and, did my vocation wherever it was. So it's not really a transition. It's something I've always been involved in and always have done.
Why did you run for president of the Village of Hazel Crest?
Well, previously I was a trustee.
Okay.
I was a trustee for 8 years, and it's like a natural transition at that time. We were stumbling as our community as we began to transition from predominantly majority community, most predominantly white community, to a predominantly African American community. I knew that transition was going to be important, so I wanted to be involved in that process. So I decided to run. I ran the first time, I lost by 13 votes.
Okay.
Stayed around, stayed involved, and I ran the second time, and we won it. And from there, we moved on.
How has your experience been as president of Hazel Crest for the last almost 8 and almost 9 years?
It's been it has its up and downs, but it's been exciting. We've been able to, with my board, because I tell people all the time, you can get in public service, especially in government, especially local government. You can't do a lot of things unless you have a board that supports your efforts.
Okay.
I remember the mayor before me, he's always tell me, he said, you got to learn to count in politics. You learn to count. I said, yeah, you got to know how many votes you have. Mm-hmm. If you want to move something forward, you have to know whether you have 1 vote, 2 votes, or enough votes to move your agenda forward. And in order to do that, you have to be able to work with people, get them to buy into what you're trying to do, to move things forward, and it makes your tenure much easier. So I have a board, and I've had a board for almost the last 8 years that really have worked with me. We've been able to accomplish so much across the board, connect with other communities, because we understand that it's just not the small town of Hazel Crest that makes a difference. You have to have relationships with Markham, Homewood, Country Club Hills, because in the south suburbs, we are separated by 1 street.
Mm-hmm.
You go across the street, you're in a new community.
Right.
So it's important to be able to build those relationships. And over the last 8 years, it's been great because we've been able to do so much in the Village of Hazel Crest because of those relationships within our communities, also on the state and federal level also.
Why are you running for Cook County Commissioner, and why do you think you're qualified for that position?
Well, I'm running because it's an exciting time. Commissioner Deborah Sims decided to not run, so it's an open seat. And it's a time that we're going through a lot of transitions in the south suburbs. You see Amazon's coming out there. We're talking about an airport that may come out here. We have rail. Canadian National has their central rail system out there, and they bring 100 trainees every weekend to train to go out throughout the country and provide services. So after years of really stagnation and not really being able to move, taxes out there very high, now we see people who are now interested in the Southland again. And so the thing about this seat is very important that we have someone who has relationships, understanding relationships, who's been involved in the community, and the unique thing, who has lived in the city and lived in the suburbs. It's like coming home to me. You know, the community that raised me and developed me as a young man, which was Allgale and Roseland and the Riverdale community that I grew up in George Washington Carver High School, Larry Hawkins and all those guys, Michael Studley, and people who helped me transition as a young man. And then me coming from the military and actually living in the south suburbs for 22 years, to be able to transition between both of those communities is awesome. It's like coming home. You know, how many times do people talk about, I want to come back to my neighborhood and make a difference? This is an opportunity for me to do that. So when this seat came open, I was excited. I said, this is a chance for me to actually make a difference, not only where I live at, but where I grew up at and actually became a young man.
Okay. What are some of the things you have accomplished during your time as village president?
Oh gosh, a lot. I say a lot because it's not me, it's the team that has been around me.
Okay.
The relationships with my state rep, Will Davis, who I helped run his very first campaign. Robin Kelly, I was part of that very first campaign. Robert Kelly's husband, Dr. Nate Horn, I grew up with him in Allgale.
Oh, okay.
You know, Debbie Myers Martin, who's a state rep now, who's a mayor when I first met her. You know, those relationships over the years have helped build not only Hazel Crest, but actually the region. And so, you know, those accomplishments of South Suburban Hospital built a $98 million surgical center out there, the only surgical center where you have surgery, you don't have to go up and down an elevator, everything's on one floor. I look at some of the things that we've done, the new park, we have a new village hall, and then not only that, the growth of the region. In the village of Matheson, they're going to build a new fire training facility where we can hopefully get more African Americans involved as firemen. So now they don't have to go to Chicago and places way out. They can be able to go right there in the Southland region. I look at, when we talk about accomplishments of Hazel Crest, I look at the accomplishments of the region, of the Southland region, because again, we're right across the street from each other. The group of mayors I work with within the South Suburban Regional Mayor Black Caucus, we have 17 African American mayors. When I first came out there, we had like 4.
Okay.
That group has grown. We've been able to work together. South Suburban mayors and managers. You know, it's 45 communities and of different cultures and racial makeup. We've been able to work together to actually grow the Southland and try to do things that reduce our taxes and our tax base by bringing businesses to the community and supporting each other. It used to be a time before business came to one town, we'd try to steal that business and make it come to our town so we can get a tax break, you know, and help us with our taxes. But we realized that's not going to work. So now we work together, you know, to bring new businesses here because we know that helps the overall region. And so that being a part of that for the last 8 years, 8 years as a trustee, and then coming to it's my 3rd year as a mayor or village president, to be a part of this growth in the Southland, and then to see the new things coming, it makes me feel good, and I feel that's part of me being a part of the community. And those are major accomplishments, I think.
Okay. How are you, or how would you say you are different than the other candidates who are running for the seat?
One thing we understand about policy and public services is relationships.
Okay.
I have a record that people look at saying, what did you do while you was in these seats? What did you do while you was involved? So people easily look at the relationships I built, the involvement within the communities through the Southland, not only just my community. The way my peers have, you know, really raised me to a point where they talk to me and come to me. I'm the only second vice president of the Illinois Municipal League. The Illinois Municipal League is the largest advocacy organization for mayors and elected officials in the state of Illinois. And to be only the 3rd African American, and also to be there where we brought in 5 other African Americans to that organization through the advocacy of Brian Cole, the director, has been phenomenal. So relationship building is important. And this position in the county, you have to understand how do you move things? How do you advocate for over $1 billion that's going to come through the county through the ARPA program? How do you make sure that those dollars are dispersed out through the Southland region fairly and equitably, where We know we have infrastructure that needs to be built. We know that the healthcare issue after COVID, this pandemic has been phenomenal. The mental health crisis that has caused within our community. We have to make sure that you understand all those things and that you have the relationships with the mayors and the other commissioners and your lobbyists in Springfield, your representation in Springfield of the federal government. You have to understand those pieces and been involved in how do you move these things. You know, it's easy to run for a position and you want to be there. And I understand people with advocacy that want to be there. But once you get there, how do you make legislation happen? How do you make these pieces move forward? It's not as easy as people think. And then how do you strong enough to stand for your community and not just get overwhelmed by other commissioners or things that come down the pipe that you really don't understand? And who do you go to talk to move those pieces? I think I'm uniquely qualified because of my relationships, because I understand city and I understand the suburbs, because I've lived in both spaces and I have the relationships to make sure things move. And when things come forward, I understand what they're talking about. I understand how to move those dollars. I understand the needs of the mayors in our region, which is very, very important. And I understand the needs of elected officials in the city of Chicago who is a part of the 5th District. And I think I'm uniquely qualified to move those issues forward.
Okay. And so then why do you think people should vote for you?
Well, from not just being a nice guy, just being someone who, I think I'm a people person.
Okay.
I always have been. I belong to a lot of organizations because I want to make sure that I understand what the needs of people are. During the initial phase of the pandemic, I was watching TV when I was seeing up north they were giving people tests and testing seniors, and in the Southland region we weren't getting anything. I developed an organization called the Southwest Strategic Partnership Group, which we now call the Southland Partnership. And what we did was reach out to all our elected officials at the state level, all elected officials at the county level, and the local officials, and brought them together to discuss how do we advocate for the Southland. Because if you look at the numbers, we're the ones who are not only getting the virus, but are dying from the virus. And so that advocacy, just reaching out to them, because of the relationships I had, they got on the phone, we had the conversation, and within that day, we had developed a health issue for how do we deal with this health-wise and health organizations, education, how do we deal with the educational component of our citizens who need that, the community engagement component, how do we deal with the faith-based organizations to move this whole process with the virus forward, and how do we connect all these not-for-profit organizations in the business world to actually move the Southland forward. And we were able, within a year and a half, during this whole pandemic, raise over $1.5 million and give out over $1.5 million through relationships we had through United Way, the Chicago Community Trust, the Southland Development Authority, and we were able to get personal protection equipment. We were able to get PPP money to businesses. We were able to actually get people tested and have test sites set up. And working with the South Suburban Regional Mayor Black Caucus, we were able to work with Walgreens to bring vaccinations out to the Southland, to Hillcrest High School, where we vaccinated over 2,500 people with the Johnson & Johnson, so they had to get one shot. That was something that relationships I had was, and were able to bring those individuals in to work together, to move forward together, and we still exist today. The Southland Partnership continues to work with the county, Walgreens, all these other not-for-profit organizations, and we're just a consortium. It's not really a not-for-profit organization, but the not-for-profit organizations come to us and say, who do you suggest that we give these funds to? Because they know we have the relationships, we know we're really doing the work, and so they love partnering with us. So I think my relationships and those things can help us move forward. People have been sleeping on the county, but we're about to wake it up. We're gonna make sure people understand what's going on, and that's why I think I'm uniquely qualified for this position.
Where can people go to find out more about you and the campaign?
They can go to Vernard at cookcountycommissioner.com to find more information about us. You can always call at 708-277-3024. We will give you information on to be involved with the campaign, to come and talk to me. I'll come out and talk to churches. Come and talk to individuals so they can understand the importance of what's happening here. this is a new day. This is a time for a new day, new direction. We had over 28 years of one commissioner, and now she's stepping down. So let's jumpstart this and then make sure that the advocacy and the needs that we have in the region are addressed, and that we build relationships, and that we continue to move forward and actually use that component of the county to actually bring back the Southland.
Okay, great. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like people to know about you?
Well, just let them know that I'm a family man, and I believe that all this is about family. Southland has always been about family. People move initially from Chicago to the Southland to bring their families to it and grow the Southland. But more than that, the Southland now encompasses not only the south suburbs, but the south part of Chicago, where I grew up at, and that we actually need to work together to accomplish some of the things that we have lagged behind for many years. We used to have steel mills in Harvey. People used to move to Harvey, and we had rail on Harvey. But over the years, high taxes, white flight, all those things that affected our community, business flight, people making steel overseas. We see a new resurgence into the Southland with all these new e-commerce and intermodals and Amazons and other things that are coming to Southland, because Southland has land. And so this is the time for good leadership across the board, and I want to be part of that leadership.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Remember to make plans to join us again next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real news